I'm like, I gotta choose you.
I know.
All right. I have too many mice. Too many mices. Are we on? Are we on? Oh, look. Identity 4 says we're live. So you know what that means, everybody? We're starting in 3, 2. This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 670, recorded on Wednesday, May 9th, 2018. Wild Moms Science. I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight on This Week in Science, we are going to fill your heads with polygamy, a Swedish proposal, and wild moms. But first,
disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. In a world that is constantly evolving and revolving at about 1,000 miles per hour, it is easy to get lost in the constant motion and commotion of being a hairless ape in the type of race designed for furry rats. Just how to make satisfying sense of it all. How to get a halfway decent understanding of everything so that you can know what to expect. See what's coming next. Should I bring an umbrella? How do black holes form? Can I safely swallow gum? Can I still chew gum while being swallowed by a black hole? Answering the important day-to-day questions. This is what the hairless ape brain wants to do more than anything. But how? Yes, the modern hairless ape could just Google the world one question at a time, or we could delve directly into the deep end of human knowledge and learn the questions we never thought to ask here on This Week in Science. Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind I can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Kiki and Blair.
and a good science to you too, Justin and Blair, and our guest for the evening, Dr. Carin Bondar. We are here yet again for all the science that is fit to discuss on the interwebs. And oh yes, if you're watching us on the YouTubes, you can see us. If you're listening to us in the podcasts, I hope you hear us loud and clear because we have so much to talk about tonight. Okay, I wasn't here last week. Blair and Justin, you guys did a great job of keeping the ship afloat. Thank you for sailing. You sailed the seas of silence. Silence? No silence.
It
Science.
was an odd show.
Yeah.
Neither of us came prepared. We didn't know who should talk first or second. So it was just quiet for about an hour.
That's right. Okay, well, there will be no silence on this show tonight. No. On tonight's show, we have a whole bunch of science news. I have some news stories about cloudless giants, the outlying U.S., and we have an interview with Dr. Carin Bondar. Justin, what do you have for us?
Oh, I brought, I brought stories on Swedes proposing to make everything out of wood. And before we find life on other planets, we need to find a way to find life on other planets.
That sounds like it makes sense in a roundabout kind of way. Yes, it does. All right, Animal Corner, Blair, what is in store for us?
Oh, I brought 2 new kinds of technology to help eavesdrop on, saved some animal species, so that's really important. And then also some polygamy.
It's a great thing to bring to a podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is. All right, everyone. As we jump right into the show, I want to remind you that you can subscribe to the TWIS podcast on iTunes and the Google Play podcast portal, Stitcher, Spreaker, tune in. You can also find us on YouTube and Facebook. You can just search for This Week in Science or go directly to twis.org if you're interested in subscribing. But now, it's time to welcome our wonderful guest for the evening, Dr. Carin Bondar. She's making a return appearance to TWIS. I think the last time you were here was maybe during our 22-hour.
I think it was. You were broadcasting live, and I'm such an airhead that I jumped on right
the wrong time and you were doing something official. But here I was. There we were. It was awesome.
Never the wrong time.
It
Never.
was a 23-hour show.
Yeah, that explains why my memory is kind of fuzzy about that appearance.
I think for
I
part
just
of the
showed
show,
up.
this was me.
Oh yeah, you slept through a good amount of it.
Justin was horizontal on the couch. So this time we have fully engaged Justin. We've got everyone here. So for those of you who are not familiar with Dr. Bondar, she is a biologist, an author, a TV and web host. She is also a psychotherapist, a jungle explorer, glass artist, former ballerina, a TED speaker, and mother of 4. So she's got a lot of experience in this topic we're discussing today. So she does it all, and she is a wild mom. Right? No, she might be a wild mom, but she wrote a book that's called Wild Moms Motherhood in the Animal Kingdom. And it is an extensive discussion of motherhood, all sorts of species and types of animals and all sorts of things. But before we dig in, Carin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here, my friend.
Yeah, it's so great to have you back again. What have you been up to in between? Let's see, your first book was Wild Sex, and now there's Wild Moms. What's been in the in-between?
Gosh, so I have been delving into writing online series, and I've been hosting those as well on Seeker. So I have one over there called Wild Sex after the Wild Sex book. I have another one that's premiering for Mother's Day about wild moms. And I've also been doing this jungle thing, which has been so amazing. I don't know, we named a beetle after Leonardo DiCaprio.
I saw a post about that. That's so neat.
He changed his thing. So yeah, yay. We've been just going out to Borneo, to sort of really remote rainforests. So we have taxonomists that come with us it's their company based out of the Netherlands. We've been collecting things and characterizing them, bringing citizen scientists with us too. So yeah, I've been doing that, and gosh, been mothering, it's busy. There's always some good stuff going on.
Yeah. So in the life of a biologist, going out and to the jungles, and you're looking at beetles, and I think there was a picture that somebody in our Facebook community posted of you with tarantulas.
Oh yeah,
all over your head, and I'm just wondering if it is a prerequisite for field biologists to be absolutely comfortable with any spider or insect on them.
I would say if you're going to be, in many of the major ecosystems of the world, maybe if you were in the ice or something like that, you wouldn't get as many bugs. But oh my word, if you don't like bugs, don't go to Borneo. Don't go to anywhere tropical. Like honestly, we're outnumbered by 1,000,000 to 1. So yeah, bugs are so great though. We have this really sort of bad negative thought about things like cockroaches, for example. We consider them to be very dirty, where in fact, all they do is clean up our garbage. So cockroaches are amazing. Cockroaches are awesome. Yeah.
They're the cleaners.
They're the cleaners. They're like the little vacuum cleaners of the insect world.
That's fantastic. We have to we need a new marketing campaign.
Right?
For cockroaches.
Yeah. They need PR.
I think this is my theory. Tiny googly eyes. Right? Just run around sticking tiny googly eyes on there.
That's a great idea.
And people just totally change their mind about
they do. And that's an interesting point, because people are super in love with jumping spiders, how they have those big eyes. And that's because we love the Disney eyes, right? We love the super big, round, dark eyes. We think they're super cute. We love that.
Isn't there something recently, some researchers trained, I think this week that someone reported, researchers trained a jumping spider to jump on cue?
Yes. It was actually, so I didn't do a story on this because there were so many other things, but basically they just kept picking up the spider and putting it down from one platform to another until the spider was like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to go over there. I get it. So they actually trained
operant conditioning with a spider. Oh my God. That's amazing.
Yeah. And they didn't bait it or anything. They didn't put food over there. They were just like, you're supposed to jump.
That's awesome.
Yeah, now I'm going to be like trying to trap little jumping spiders so I can have a pet jumping spider who jumps on cue.
Oh,
are
her name was
Yes.
Kim, by the way.
Right?
Great. Why not?
Even better. Thanks, Kim.
Even better. Okay, back to the subject at hand. Wild moms. Spiders make amazing moms, but
They do.
why did you, I mean, it seems like, you know, after sex, the next step is motherhood, but why particularly jump into the subject of motherhood as for this book?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think
As a mother of 4.
right. Well, and you know, and also, you know, interestingly, it's been a tumultuous journey. Like I have, Kiki, we've talked about this before, but I've had postpartum with all 4 of my kids too. So it, you know, was not like it was not a super fun, awesome time always. So I guess maybe I've always kind of had this philosophical outlook about how I approach motherhood, and I've always kind of approach my work as far as looking at how animals approach the things that they need to accomplish in their lives day to day. I guess I've always been sort of innately curious about how other animal moms feel and also parent, you know, because I feel like we do so much as human mothers, and sometimes I feel like we even overshoot what is necessary for us to do as animals. And why do we do that? And why do we continue with things like that? And do other animals do that? And do other moms get postpartum? And like, I sort of always think in those ways. And because I am mothering a lot, it just always comes to my mind. Like you know, making sandwiches or packing lunches, or, you know, do other animal moms pack snacks for their kids when they go off to play, or, you know, things like that.
And so do they?
so yeah, you know, no, as far as the packing lunch goes, I didn't come across any moms that are actually packing lunches, although would they provision their offspring if their offspring had to go out, for example, to learn how to do something, maybe how to hunt or how to play or how to ultimately how to have sex, they would likely provision them. And especially if they were still breastfeeding them, they would obviously feed them well before they were to do that. So I think the interesting puzzle for me has been to kind of look at, you know, maybe not a literal translation of how humans would approach things, but also how we can kind of open our minds to see, well, how might that look like if it was a primate doing it, or another mammal. The book is really focused on mammals. I would love to do a spineless edition too. That would be super awesome, because invertebrates obviously have a ton of interesting maternal strategies and parental strategies as well. But yeah, the book ended up being quite mammal centric, just because I just sort of felt like that was where a lot of the wonderful, relatable stories were and are.
Yeah, I mean, there was one good chapter that was focused a lot on birds specifically.
Oh, yes, a couple of really good bird chapters. Brood parasites, you know, moms who drop off their eggs in other species' nests, and cool. And egg allocation is so amazing. And birds are so good because bird moms allow us to measure what they put into each individual offspring. And they do that by laying eggs. No other animals do that. So that's like a really great quantifiable, measurable, observable characteristic that birds kind of lend to biologists who want to study maternal investment.
I thought I've always been fascinated with brood parasitism. And so the idea of this, the evolution of this strategy where it's like, I don't need to have my own nest. I'm just going to put my egg in somebody else's and they're going to take care of my baby. But then how much goes into the strategies of the offspring, and then also I guess that you call them the prey species as well, because their nest is being preyed on to survive.
Yeah, so there's the whole spectrum. So there are some brood parasite species that do prey on or murder the children of the other ones. There are some that
pick a hole in your egg.
And there are some that leave the eggs and allow them, the two types of offspring, to compete. And, you know, interestingly, the sort of overall general consensus with respect to this whole thing called brood parasitism is that it just sucks. It sucks if you're a host species. It just does. And in a lot of cases, the host species, they don't have any other choice. They have evolved mechanisms to identify, for example, a brood parasitic egg, but they have no way of stopping the brood parasites from laying them. You know, they try sometimes to construct their nests in different ways, but then the parasites fight back. And the overall level of biological fitness gained by brood parasites is just so much greater than it is for their poor hosts. It's so sad.
I recently read, and it was an example related to an example in your book. You talked about a particular species of cichlid fish that does where it hold the mother has its nursery for its babies in its mouth.
Yes. Yes.
And there is a species of catfish called the cuckoo catfish.
Nice.
Like the cuckoo bird,
Right?
is a brood parasite.
Oh,
And
wow.
and the story just came out this week or recently that the cuckoo catfish gets involved. It's a predator of the cichlid, and it gets involved. And while it's trying to eat the babies of the cichlid, it goes and drops a few eggs in there of its own. And then the mother raises the eggs of the catfish in its mouth. And then when the baby catfish come out of their eggs, it eats all the other baby cichlids in the mouth of the mother.
So that she eventually burps out like one great big one that's not even her own species.
Yeah, that's a catfish.
how violating.
Right? It's super like, wow, that's, you know, it sucks. There's just no other way to describe it. It's brutal. Like, it's just, wow, ingenious, like evolution. Wow. But wow, yeah, it's a tough world out there.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned also in the book about the, I guess some of these examples of brood parasitism that we find, it's either there's not really any protection strategy, that the prey species doesn't really have any defense. So some species do have defenses and others don't. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on there?
There are generalist and specialist brood parasites. And so the specialist brood parasites would be the ones who lay eggs that look exactly like the eggs of their host, for example. And so the host may have a difficult time even telling the difference for the first little while. But the generalist ones, like the common cuckoo, they have such a leg up. So host species may really hunker down, for example. The female may hunker down in her nest to try to prevent the cuckoo from flying in and laying. But the cuckoos have evolved something called a marauding behavior that a male and a female will do together. So the male will kind of come in and try to distract who's ever in the nest and even attack them, so the female can swoop in and lay eggs. And interestingly, most birds across the bird world, it's pretty standard that an egg laying event takes about 20 minutes. So whether you're a chicken or whether you're a crow or whatever, but brood parasites can actually lay eggs in sometimes under 10 seconds. So they just swoop in, lay the egg, and they're gone. Yeah.
That's a drive-by.
Right? It's a total drive-by. It's a drive-by egging. That's exactly what it is.
Oh my God.
And so what they can do, though, by guarding their nests really actively and by being somewhat proactive against the brood parasites, they can prevent the brood parasites from having enough time to peck holes in the eggs or to evict their own eggs. And so it's almost like a happy medium. They can't prevent it from happening, but they can, in some cases, prevent their own eggs from being destroyed in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's unfortunately, it's not a happy evolutionary ending for the host species. And because generalist brood parasites can lay in so many different nests of different species in different areas, I mean, and especially with climate change and things like that, they're just taking, they're so successful. If anything, they're becoming more numerous because they can just basically lay eggs anywhere. And if they lose a few, who cares? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They don't have the same issues that are affecting them as the other birds.
And birds,
reproductive issues.
Reproductive issues, like birds do a lot of direct parental care, nurturing and incubating those eggs and then feeding the little hatchlings. Cuckoos don't have to do any of that. They can just put all of their energy right back into making more eggs, more eggs, more eggs.
So you mentioned postpartum, and I'm just wondering, is there evidence of postpartum in other animals?
There is. So there's, and this is kind of a real emerging area of research. And it's also an area where, a lot of sort of the hardline scientists will will not love my views on it. But
Right.
I say without a shadow of a doubt, yes. You look at research with macaques, and even some of our closest primate relatives, like chimps, even some orangutans. There's evidence of females that don't give the kind of normal maternal care that we would see in the majority of the population. Now, basically every mother, by the time you get to a primate, as far as I'm concerned, each and every mother has her own personality and her own mothering style. So that's not to be confused that, all macaques or chimps or whatever do the same things as moms. They don't. They're like us humans. Maybe I like to breastfeed more on this side, or maybe I like to drink coffee in the morning, and maybe you don't, or blah, blah, whatever. Like, we're all different. However, there are some sort of broad-reaching generalizations that look at mothers that abuse, for example, and how is that tied in with mom's own postpartum behavior? Does she sit and rock? And does she, is she acting depressed? Yes, there's a lot of cases where this has been documented and also quantified using hormones, using neurotransmitters, and it's a similar kind of phenomenon to what happens in humans. And so it's an emerging area. It's an area that we don't know a ton about yet, but it's definitely one that I wanted in the book, especially after, the way that I felt after having my kids. I was always just like, I was good. And then all of a sudden I wasn't good. Like it's like I could tell something had changed, and I just didn't feel happy anymore about it or at all. And
it makes no sense whatsoever.
It makes no sense. And of course, our brains are obviously super complicated, but those of our closest primate relatives and primates in general are also very, very complicated. And the sort of neural maps that link the sort of emotional connections that we think of love or friendship, the basic neuromechanics of those feelings are the same. And so why would we then not say that these things don't occur? And certainly they do. And interestingly, in looking at studies of primates, you see females who are more inclined to let their babies go. And is this due to the baby, to mom being depressed, or is it due to mom just saying, hey, you need to get out there and learn how to learn the world, go? Mm-hmm. It's complicated. But we do see that primate babies who are sort of left to their own devices very early on tend to become more gregarious and more bold, clearly, than the ones who stay with mom and who maybe even are over-mothered in the primate life. So that's kind of an interesting thought as well.
Yeah. I wonder, the evolutionary impact, or where it's come from, the postpartum. Is it something that appears during stress, is more likely in a stressful environment, in a stressful period where maybe it's better for the mom to get rid of her attachment to her offspring and maybe sever that connection as soon as possible? Or if it's just something that's completely a weird hormonal glitch that is maladaptive across the board.
That's a really interesting point. And I think stress has a lot to do with it, because certainly stress leads to changes in the way that any primate mom will parent, and in sort of the way that her own body is functioning. But I also think, and I take it sort of a little bit further in the book when I talk about human moms, and I think that the advent or the evolution of the human brain and the evolution of our understanding of our own emotions. And I say that specifically that way because we don't really understand the emotions of other primates. We understand ours because we speak our language, and we can understand
someone
ourselves.
can say, I'm upset, I'm depressed, you can say it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so through being able to express what goes on with us, I feel like a lot of women struggle with the juxtaposition of their non-biological life or their career and their biological life or their motherhood life. And I think that's a position that no other females in the animal kingdom that we, from what we know, have had to face. This notion that we actually, as human moms who undergo menopause at a very early stage in our lives, who are basically biologically not irrelevant, but we obviously can still contribute to our children and our grandchildren, blah, blah. But we have other things to do. and therefore our brains are going off in totally different directions. And then our biology reels us back in, and that can be quite jarring.
Do you think humans are, I mean, are humans really unique in the motherhood world? Like, do we do things really differently compared to first other primates and then second, just the broad spectrum of mothers?
I think in the very broad spectrum of things, we are very similar to other primates. So if you look at more traditional societies or even sort of tribal societies in the Amazon or in Africa, I think we're very close to the sort of basal emotional underpinnings of motherhood and the basic actions of motherhood to ensure that your children survive to reproductive maturity. I think that the developed world has offered mothers a whole bunch of solutions to problems we didn't necessarily even have, which has kind of created problems. For example, cesarean sections, which are extremely important for a lot of women for medical reasons. And I would never obviously tell a woman to not get a cesarean if they needed one. However, I guess I do disagree that women should have elective cesareans because of all of the important things that go on during natural childbirth. And interestingly, you probably read this paper that pelvis size is actually becoming increasingly smaller in Western populations, such that we're sort of well on our way to having smaller pelvis moms that are actually still giving birth to normal sized, cranial sized babies, which may eventually lead to a subpopulation of humans that can't be birthed naturally. Because pelvises are getting smaller and smaller and smaller because we're just cutting them out. And so that's definitely a uniquely human phenomenon for sure.
Absolutely. Wow. I mean, that really gets at the, I guess, this subspecies evolution of Homo sapiens. It's now moving
humans
into
and bulldogs. That's how bulldogs are born.
Right? But
wait, what is that right? I didn't know that about the bulldogs.
Because their heads are so big.
Because their heads are so big. That's and that's weird. And so then what does that do? That relaxes the selective pressure on brain size. So could then these tiny pelvis subspecies of humans actually be giving birth to more intelligent babies because there's no longer a constraint on brain size?
Big-headed babies, right? Little hipped ladies.
Right? There's got to be a song in there, like honestly, big hip, big head. Like, anyways, but yeah. So I think the and another thing, and I don't want to, I formula fed and breastfed all my kids, and I never want to appear preachy, but I think that's another major thing that sets us apart from all other animals is that we have this. Well, in the developed world, we have this option right from day one. Like, you don't need to breastfeed. You don't need to breastfeed. Whereas that's sort of the most unmammalian. Like, we have mammary glands. Like, that's what mammals are. Like, why wouldn't we use them when we have our children? And so that's, like I said, but then again, we look sort of not back, but we look towards populations that are more traditional, that don't have that as an option, and they're doing it the natural way. So yeah.
If you could trade motherhood strategies with any other animal, what would it be?
Wow. I'll tell you who it wouldn't be. No.
That's a good one too.
I'll start with who it would be, then I'll tell you who it wouldn't be.
Okay.
It might be a rabbit, although they do have a lot of babies. So rabbits have a lot of babies. And you know how there's that age-old rabbits, have sex like rabbits kind of thing. But it isn't really because rabbits have more sex than other mammals. It's just simply because ovulation and copulation in rabbits are coupled. And so every time a female rabbit copulates, she ovulates and therefore becomes pregnant with a litter of kits. So what a mom rabbit will do is right before the kits are going to be born, she's pregnant for 3 or 4 weeks. She will dig a little burrow nest, and then she will make it soft and, grasses and things. And then she'll just lay her kits in there, or have her kits in there. And then she'll take off and she'll seal it up, and she'll only come back once a day, and feed them. That's it. And that's pretty sweet, actually. Just from, those of us that remember like non-stop breastfeeding on demand.
Yeah.
Like they're sitting there
I'm
for like an
attached to
hour.
this.
You're like, are you done yet? Yeah. So That's pretty interesting. And of course, that makes sense in the context of rabbits, because they are prey to a great many number of predators, and going back and forth to their nest or burrow would attract the predator's attention more than, if she only does it once per day. So that might be and I say that in jest, of course, blah blah. Love my children, la la la. Breastfeeding them was a total joy. Every minute of breastfeeding them was awesome, blah blah. But yeah, it totally wasn't. So yeah, once a day, I can get down with that. So who it wouldn't be? This is a tough one, because there's a lot that it wouldn't be. But I would say maybe hyena. Because female hyenas, especially first-time moms, so female hyenas have very specialized genitalia. They have essentially male genitalia. So females have this pseudo penis that hangs down like a penis, and it's very powerful sexually. It means males can't, have sex with females if the females aren't on board with the action. However, these females also have to give birth through this penis. And they often give birth to 2 cubs at a time. Well, that's general for hyena. And the asphyxiation rate in first-time moms for the cubs is very, very high, something like 30%. And the first-time moms they have a very significant rate of death as well, because they can just get to, this is a 2-centimeter diameter tube that's about a foot long. And so that's a long journey for these little babes to go. Yeah. And so there's a few accounts from I know, sorry, being disgusting. No. A few accounts from sort of captive populations where, these females will be going through this process of labor for, 24 hours, 48 hours while these things try to come, and it's maybe too late a lot of times. So what will happen is the first time moms will finally give birth, and the bottom of this whole penile clitoris will rip open. And so subsequent births will be less traumatic, but
they'll be easier because the trauma already happened.
Yeah. There's a lot of stories. Moms go through a lot. You know what I'm saying? And humans are like, oh no, it's fine. We'll just cut them out. It's all bad.
Yeah. See, I thought you were going to say something akin to the opossum, where you have 13 babies riding on your back all day. I thought that was bad.
It is bad.
But that one's worse. For sure.
It's not great. Yeah.
Yeah. My last one was delivered at home in a pool.
Oh, cool.
In a water thing. But it took, the first one, we did the same way, but at the hospital, because we were, increasingly being bombarded with fears that everyone will die in childbirth if it's not in a hospital, right? If it doesn't take place there. And we had to do a lot of self-educating, and met some wonderful, wonderful folks who helped us all the way through. But yeah, it's a weird thing that so many of these births are taking place through a hospital, where, it wasn't really necessary. We got pretty far
from
this planet without doing that.
Mm-hmm. But, interestingly, human birth is far more traumatic than other apes, even chimps and bonobos. And that's because we're bipedal. So we're upright, which places a whole bunch of constraints on our pelvis. And it also, the way that babies have to come out of the birth canal sort of means that they have to twist as well as come out. Yeah. So it's a little corkscrew. Yeah. Exactly. And so I guess there's immense probability for, pain.
Yep.
The pain. Yeah. Pain we are really not used to in any way, shape, or form. And it is dramatically more painful. At least we assume so, based on observing other primates give birth. They have larger, wider pelvises, and they have smaller headed babies as well. So I guess maybe, but great point.
And our solution to that in the hospital is then to do an epidural. And so it relieves the pain, and then you can't push anymore, which leads you right into the C-section. So,
I know. We're so smart, yet we're not smart. Yeah,
exactly. So many smart, not smarts. But one aspect of this that you do bring up in the book is the communal nature of primate birth and how how women and we have this now in the midwifery community, and the idea that the women, the females, come together. More experienced females help the inexperienced females. They work together, help bring the baby out. And I was amazed to read that other primates do this.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like you said, it's this sisterhood that exists in many, many species. It's so obvious, but it isn't until you think about it and you're like, oh, it's so obvious. But really, like the best and only help to a woman or female birthing an offspring is a woman who's been there before. They're no matter how much dad cares, and bless you, Justin, I bet you do. It's a help that is relevant on another level for a female who's been there to do it. And that we do see in a lot of primates. As you've said, the females will actually help take babies out of the vaginas of the birthing females. The other place where we see that a lot, where the males are somewhat excluded, is when an infant dies. We'll see females will rally around the infant and around the mother, and males will usually take a much more backseat role. This has been observed a lot in things like giraffes, zebras, elephants, animals that we know have strong emotional bonds. And that's, again, it's not to say that dads don't mourn the loss of their offspring. Assuredly they do. But a mom who has, especially a mammalian mom, especially something like an elephant who has carried this thing for like 2 years, it changes you. And that's, I guess, the main sort of take home from the book is that any female mammal, any female arguably, but who is who's internally gestated another human or whatever they are, is forever changed. Like there's so many physiological and psychological and emotional things that happen during the gestation and birth and subsequent mothering that never go back to the way they were. We are no longer the same animal. We will never be again. That's significant. Like that's a big deal, and that's something that only other moms or moms of whatever species can kind of get. Yeah.
Yeah. And this brings me also, in that part of the chapter, you talked about the placenta.
Oh yeah.
How the placenta is dealt with, and in many species, the placenta is eaten.
Yeah.
For various reasons. I'd love you to discuss a little bit of that, and then I have one more question after that.
I didn't eat mine. Is that what you're going to ask?
I was going to ask.
You know what? I was so messed up.
I did.
You did?
It wasn't mine. Yeah,
totally. You ate your wife's one.
Yeah.
Did she eat it also?
But technically, I guess, yeah. Oh, yeah. So we got the I don't know, the midwives took it away and came back with it in pill form.
Yeah.
And apparently, though, isn't it right? Like, it's not actually hers. It's the baby.
It's something that forms as sort of a conduit between mom and baby. Yeah.
But it's baby DNA, which I didn't know. I just ate my child, man. Oh, that's terrible.
So basically, the whole notion of eating the afterbirth is pretty much universal across the whole order. And we're kind of the exception to the rule. Not only is the afterbirth highly nutritious, especially for mothers that have just birthed and probably gone through quite a good deal of, loss of fluids, loss of blood, who knows. But it also contains, again, this is research that's just emerging, but it's also contains neuropeptides and many important factors in immune development, and also in some kind of neurological processes that are related to postpartum depression. It's actually thought which is why on the second we decided to do that. So I'm glad you did. I wish I had. I asked about it. I remember asking, and I was told there was a placenta fridge. Like a fridge full of placentas. I'm like, what?
Oh, no.
Now that I was so out of it back then, but God, what do they do with them anyway? Like, do they just took them out at the end of the day? I don't know.
Right.
That's
So
a
we had
great question.
Yeah, I wonder
we
if
had
they
these-
if you signed something while you were,
I might have.
busy
Yeah.
that means those placentas could get used in a lab somewhere in some sort of testing.
Right, because there's
That'd be
stem
pretty cool.
cells in them and stuff, isn't there?
We had midwives with us who were like, if anything did happen where we went to the hospital, they were like in charge of we will protect and come back with the placenta. Like they were like not gonna let that slide. Like they were. If you ever like, I wish midwives did more than just birthing. Like they're they're the greatest like patient advocate.
I was just gonna say they're advocating,
Mhm.
and I think that in the primate world, and then other natural societies of animals, that's exactly what we see. It's this midwife role that is like, let us in there. And generally speaking, I haven't ever actually met a male midwife. I don't know if you have, maybe there is, but mostly it's a female profession. And that's exactly the biological role. The women who help, who advocate, who give the woman who's birthing the voice she needs. Yeah.
And we had our midwife the whole way, and it now it's I'm getting the picture of these female apes sort of gathering around, and it was very much like we're the ones with the tub, and she's going through the birth pains, and I'm holding her hand, and sometimes cringing, but not going to say anything. But a little bit of pain in my hand because I just hold my hand kind of tight. But I'm not going to complain because I understand there's a hierarchy of this going on right now. But the midwife is just sort of calmly sitting like on the couch in the background, ready to pipe in if she needs to, or if there's something to point out to us, or a comforting word here or there, like you guys are doing fine, like that kind of thing. Like
that calm, like you know she's there.
Yes,
so
very calming.
Great.
Yeah.
I have a great story about that too. I should say this is terrible, but my ex-husband, we're divorced now, but we're still really good friends, blah, blah. During the birth of our second child, it was kind of going a bit iffy just right at the birth, it was super painful. They were having to like do the little vacuum and whatever. And all of a sudden
that was my first child. It was from a previous marriage. Was the back, they got up like they're handing me like, they were handing me tongs. I don't know what to do with this. And then it was like a suction cup thing, or maybe it was a vacuum.
No, that is what it is. That's the vacuum.
And then kind of, but it was like, that was the hospital route. That was epidural. That was everything that I've since learned you should never do.
It's so hard to say. It's so hard to know because you never
without a midwife. If a midwife tells you you need an epidural, like, okay, midwife just said go throw yourself on the altar of medical science, then fine. But without that advice, I think we did it way too early the first time around.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Like it was those pains that are going to come and are going to go, but once you get the epidural, they were like pushing us to C-section. I mean, it still wasn't, but it was close. It was coming down to, if the suction cup vacuum thing didn't work, we were on to that next.
Right. So. Yeah. It's a tough.
Yeah. So you were in the vacuum situation. You were saying you had a midwife story.
Oh, right. And no, I didn't have a midwife. I wish I did. We didn't actually have that many. I live in a small town, but anyway, oh yeah. And then I heard the doctor exclaim, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No!" Talking to me. She was talking to my husband.
Oh my gosh.
Who was white as a sheet and about to pass out. And I'm like, really? So they put him in the corner with a juice box.
So wait a sec.
Don't lie down in the corner.
The doctors who are surrounding the woman who is at the verge of giving birth all dropped everything to sit him down in the corner with a juice box.
Got a juice box.
Before coming back to, okay, see, this is why I didn't complain.
He's never gonna live that down. Like,
that's great.
I mean, but I guess he was like in danger of serious. Like he was at my side, and then he was in danger of just going thunk, like right over.
And that would be bad.
It just reminded me of when you said, how you were holding the hand and it was hurting. I'm like, oh, poor you. That must have been really bad for you.
Oh my God.
Really
the self-awareness, do not say anything about it. And the sounds, the primordial guttural howling sounds that came from this. I was both in awe and afraid at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I remember the
cool.
sounds of other women. Do you remember that, Kiki? I don't know what your birth story is like, but the sounds of other women, like, oh, wow.
That's scary, probably, while you're waiting for the worst of it to come, to be able to hear that. Oh,
terrifying.
My God.
And you can tell the ones who are panicking. And
who
are grounded. You can.
It's like the cows in line for the slaughterhouse, and they're like, "What's happening up there? Did you hear that?"
Wow.
That's what it feels like, right? It's like you're listening through the walls, like, "Oh no, is that gonna happen to me?"
And then there's this weird kind of competition. It's like, but she only just got here. She can't have the baby yet. I've been here for 3 years. You know, like,
how is she already done? Oh my goodness. All right. So I think in my email I said we would talk for, a half hour.
Yeah.
40 minutes.
Taking up all your time.
We're chatting away. This is a great we always love getting to talk with you. I love
I love it too. It's always great to see you guys, and just thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
You are welcome. And I just want to say, my cat is jumping in the middle of everything. My cat just ran in there.
Awesome.
I just want to say happy Mother's Day to you, as Mother's Day is coming up this weekend.
Yes.
Indeed. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you've just gotten in from travels. Go have a wonderful evening.
Yes. Thanks, you guys.
You're welcome. Before you go, where can people find you and find information about your book?
Yeah. So the book is called Wild Moms. I think it's, available in bookstores and on Amazon and stuff. And the series is also called Wild Moms, and that will be out on all Seeker channels. I don't know, soon.
Awesome.
I haven't told. I think for Mother's Day. It's so great. It's great. Both are really fun. I'm super proud of them. So thanks very much.
Can't wait to see them. You should be. Yeah. I
Okay.
love the book. So thank you so much.
Time for Mother's Day too. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Cheers. Have a great night, guys.
Have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Thanks for stopping by.
Just stopping by. Just stopping over. Just, it's what we do on the internets. We just stop by on each other's, programs and say, hello, how's it going?
Can I borrow a cup of science?
Or some information about momhood. That was Dr. Carin Bondar. Wonderful interview. It's always great getting to chat with her. Right now, we've been talking for almost an hour, so let's take a break. This is This Week in Science. We'll be back in just a few moments with all the science news, the Swedish proposal, a little bit of polygamy, outlying U.S. Oh yeah, it's all coming to you. Stay tuned for more This Week in Science. We'll be back in just a few moments. Thanks for watching.
Can't explain things you've heard more than intuition. A lot of reason shows the way to go. New conclusion. The methods of hypothesis and patience are the only things I need. Put on a pair of goggles and go looking for the things I couldn't see. The answers lie somewhere within this
scatter plot. Hey, everybody. This is Dr. Kiki. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining us and sharing your time with us here on This Week in Science. We are so glad that you choose to come and enjoy science with us every week, and I hope that you enjoyed that interview with Dr. Bondar. She is so fantastic, and her book is just wonderful. I've had a chance. It's dense. Lots of mom information in there. But now is my time for saying thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this community. And thank you for supporting TWIS. We need your support to keep this show going week after week after week. All the stuff we do is supported by you. You bring your listenership and drive us through the show. You also bring new subscribers by telling your friends. to join us and listen to the show. You also help us out financially by donating to the show. And if you are interested in finding out some more information about this, you can head over to TWIS.org. TWIS.org is where all of the cool TWIS business is. And so if you head to TWIS.org, you will be able to find a bunch of wonderful things there. There's a first off, big orange subscribe button. Click on that subscribe button, and you'll find ways to subscribe to YouTube, iTunes, and the Google Play podcast portal. Additionally, if you are interested in helping us out financially, there are a couple of ways you can do that. Click on the yellow donate button that's on the side of the main page. Donate now. It allows you to go through PayPal to choose how much you would like to donate in a one-time way. If you would like to donate on an ongoing fashion and kind of let it do its business, click on any of the episodes and scroll through the show notes. Check out what you see there. And at the bottom of the pages, you'll find a one-time contribution, 10 times, $10 per month, $5 per month, or $2 per month recurring. So you can choose to click the recurring buttons, whichever level is it works with your budget, and help us out month after month. $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month. How can you help us out? I mean, is $2 a month? I mean, what is that? If we give you 4 episodes a month, that's 50 cents an episode. Can you do that for us? That would be so helpful. It would be really helpful. $5 a month. If we give 4 or 5 episodes, that's like $1, maybe a little bit more than $1 a month ish. It's pretty helpful. If PayPal is not the way you like to go, click on our Patreon button at the top of the page. Patreon is where we use this platform. It's a crowdfunding platform for creators, and you can become a patron at the level of support of your choice. Various levels, similar to that $2, $5, $10 recurring PayPal support. Here, you can choose various levels, and you get little gifts in return. Our thanks to you, and you are then a part of the community and sometimes get special messages from me, or you get recently I've been using this new app that PayPal has, and I give little updates as to how things are going throughout the week and what I'm working on, and little bits and pieces just to the Patreon audience. So Patreon's a great little area to get involved with TWIS and to support us in an ongoing fashion. So if you would, please support us on Patreon. Additionally, going back to TWIS, the one other way that you can support us and have a lot of fun with your wardrobe or your the things you have around your house, we have our Zazzle page. So you click on TWIS.org, Zazzle store. It's a store. It's where you can go buy things. Go to Zazzle. You can buy lumbar pillows for your back, make your nice lumbar region feel good. These are covered, they're neat pillows covered with this great art from Blair's Animal Corner calendars from past years. We also have mugs, t-shirts with the TWIS logos, mouse pads. We have a cool polo shirt with the TWIS logo on it. Very professional for those of you who can't just get away with a t-shirt at work. There are stamps, tote bags, reusable grocery bags. We need these. Why not have one that says TWIS all over it? And then maybe you have a conversation about what TWIS is, and you can send people to our website, TWIS.org. That's right. All right, everybody. Thank you for your support. We really couldn't do this without you. Now back to the show.
What happened in this?
Ooh, that's an old episode. That's not the music I was going to do. Let's do some other music here, huh?
And
we're back with more This Week in Science. I have my mute button on. I'm all, and
nobody's listening to you. No, nobody can hear you. We like being able to hear you, Justin. I like being able to hear Blair. He put his mute button right back on again. He doesn't want to talk.
I know what happened.
Doesn't want to.
I somehow got linked to my keyboard.
I just thought you didn't want to talk to us anymore. No. Welcome back, everybody. It is time now for This Week in What Has Science Done for Me Lately. That's right. Blair, thanks for reading the letter from last week. This week, we have a new letter from Jessie. Jessie says, I think my story is a little bit different than what you usually read, but I hope you will appreciate it nonetheless. I grew up in a small town of about 2,600 people. Yes, you read that number right. It is a tiny little town in the northern panhandle of Idaho. Growing up, I didn't exactly have the best access to a quality scientific education. As you can imagine, in a town like that, they tend to frown upon that evolution stuff and only teach it because it is mandated by the state. However, after high school, I did manage to get out of that small town and into the local community college. Boy, was that a shock. Needless to say, I did not fare well at first. I ended up dropping out and going to work as a welder. After a few years, I began to get curious about things. I started to look up answers to the questions that puzzled me. As I came to find out, much of what I assumed to be true was blatantly false. The more books I read, the more books I read, and the more research I did, I came to fall in love with science. Programs like TWIS also helped drastically. Against the odds, I decided to go back to school and chase a degree in mechanical engineering.
Oh, well done.
I am almost finished with my associates and will soon be going after my bachelor's. Science has given me the opportunity to better myself, my career, and my understanding of the world as it really is, and not as I wanted it to be. I just want to end by saying thank you for the work you do here on TWIS and for the work of all science communicators. Your efforts truly do pay off.
Excellent story. So I spent some time growing up, and believe it or not, occasionally even smaller towns than that. And I get that there's not a lot of resource. You know, if there's no local library, if there's no, but thankfully I ended up for the most part being raised in a small but bigger than that town that happened to be a U.C. university as the anchor industry there. So I think that was also
small
really
but
helpful.
Little culturally different. Yeah.
Yeah,
not so small, really.
Right, but having experienced that other town, there is, this is in California, which is, a populous state, but you can get real rural real quick, and it doesn't take that much to be sort of educationally isolated.
Yeah.
I remember
even with the internet and the way things are today, it still definitely happens.
In fact, the school, one of the schools I went to, I recall the textbooks, and this would have been in the mid 70s ish, mid to later 70s, late 70s. The textbooks that were there were from the 50s. I mean, one of the textbooks was labeled civics, which isn't a thing that's even a class anymore.
Right. Jessie, thank you so much for writing in. We really appreciate this. I mean, I love this statement. It's looking at the world as it really is and not as you want it to be. And I think that's something that it's you've leveled up in the world.
Yeah.
When you understand that you've moved up, you've leveled up.
That's something that even scientists have to remind themselves of pretty often.
Very often.
You have a hypothesis, it's not always going to work out as expected.
Oh, I've run into that many times in this show.
Absolutely. So, Jessie, thank you so much for writing, and we wish you the best. Congratulations on almost finishing your associates, and the best in getting your bachelor's and moving forward in your career. I'm sure it's going to be fabulous. You're on to big, good places. And everyone out there, remember that we would love you to write in with your stories of what science has done for you lately. How does it affect your life? How has it affected your life? Where does science live in your everyday? Write in. Facebook is a great place to reach us. You can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/thisweekinscience, or you can email me, Kirsten, KIRSTEN, at thisweekinscience.com. Let's keep this part of the show going, as many people seem to be enjoying it. And now on to the science. Let's move forward. And we've been doing this show for an hour. It's a long show. So let's keep the show moving quickly. Let's do it. Okay, science. The United States. The United States is not necessarily the leader in some things. In some cases, it's the outlier. Yeah. So a survey of 25 countries out of the University of Queensland in Australia, the researchers surveyed 5,323 people in 25 countries from around the world. And in doing so, discovered that one of these countries is doing its own thing, and that's the U.S. Yeah. What their survey was related to is political identity and where individuals fell along the spectrum of their political beliefs, from liberals, progressives, to all the way to conservatives. And they had the 4 different scales: left versus right, liberal versus conservative, individualist versus communitarian or community oriented, and hierarchical versus egalitarian. And then they compared that to whether or not they were susceptible to conspiracy theories or conspiratorial thinking. And what they were trying to do is connect ideology or political identity to this hypothesis that some political leanings are more likely to lean toward conspiratorial ways of thought. This is true only in the United States.
Interesting.
The United States was the only country that had a statistically significant result related to all four political scales and their opinions related to climate change. So if you place yourself on the spectrum politically, then you're probably going to have a pretty strong opinion one way or another. And and where you are in that spectrum will predict where you fall, at least in the United States, not anywhere else. There are politically active climate skeptics around the world, of course, but in terms of the broad swath of individuals who were surveyed, it's interesting that this is really something that only stands out as a trend in the United States. And what the researchers suggest is that there has been a very specific marketing push, that there was a push to link climate skepticism with particular political ideologies at some point in the past, and that has become, and they have linked those values with the political identity at this point in time. So now what I'm wondering is if there's a cultural leaders, or there was a marketing push at one point in time that linked certain values with an identity, is it possible that we can go back the other way?
No.
Absolutely. Yes, you can.
With the correct messaging and or well thought out messaging and repetition, would it be possible to once again to not make the United States so special in this case, so that we actually might be more productive in this conversation globally?
So one thing I think it's really important to remember is that we are politically very young. And so there are certain kind of glitches in our political system, kinks perhaps, that might still have a chance to work themselves out. And I think that that's something that it's not going to be easy, but it's something that can potentially be done, because, you know, if you look thousands of years ago at some other similar kind of polarized systems, you see similar kinks, and there's an opportunity to fix them. But I think it's part of it is also remembering that where this came from is some really good advertising, right? And some really good spin and some really good branding. And there at least was a resistance on the side of science to not use those things because it felt disingenuous. It felt inorganic. It felt yucky, whatever you want to say about it. And so now we are starting to learn through social science how to talk about science in a non-polarizing way, in a way that can help bring people out of these quagmires of misunderstanding that is a part of their identity. And so if you can find things that are valued, find things that people want to talk about that are related to fact and a good outcome for all humans, there's actually studies that have been done that have shown that you can change people's minds. But there has to be a unified front.
Right. And there have to be thought leaders, influential people who are well connected, celebrities, etc., who push particular ideas to make them popular, because we're primates, the hierarchy is important.
So I'm going to just weigh in and say I don't think this is a political issue at all. I don't think it's an ideological issue. It has been. It's not something that needs to change within maybe our political system. Getting money out of politics would be one thing to do it. But this is a corporate protectionist activity. It's the thing that's really unique about the United States is that we have this intense wealth disparity. And we have people who profit heavily from fossil fuels, who own or contribute advertising to and are the main revenue source of media across this country.
Absolutely.
There's conservative radio reaching places far and wide that are these small towns that they don't have the local library. They don't have a big scientific education at the school system or in the school system. And I'll tell you, it's not that old, or it didn't stop that long ago, this message. I remember tuning into, as I occasionally do just for my own perverse thrills, to an evangelical station. And within a sermon about obeying your parents, somehow climate change got tied into it. And I kid you not, I think I must have talked about it on the show. This probably would have been about 5 or 6 years ago. But I was just like, wow, it's really that level of exactly what you're talking about. This connection of your not just your ideology, your political self-identity, but your faith in your religion was even being tied to an anti-climate change messaging. Yeah. So the idea that we could just counter message, it's a lot bigger problem with that. And it delves into a lot of the way our society is constructed with the hierarchical financial differences and access to not just information, but then access to media to present a counter argument is very limited. And most of the country is not going to hear anything you say unless they seek out of some personal perverse interest to see what the science news is, this show.
That's right. They should be, right? Well, and I would love to know what everybody out there thinks about this issue, because we can debate it all night long, and we're not going to, because we all have wonderful things to say about this. But you know what's awesome in science? You know what's awesome? NASA launched the InSight mission. Finally, this last week, the InSight mission was launched from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. It's very rare to have a California launch, so this was pretty exciting. And the InSight mission, do you guys know anything about it?
It launched.
It launched. So the InSight mission, it was supposed to launch a couple of years ago, but then something held it back, and now it's come back bigger and better, and it's going to Mars.
I'll tell you what held it back for most of the 2 years is that Mars was on the wrong side of the sun a year ago.
That's only 1 year ago, but a couple of years.
Yeah, but see, it takes 2 years for it to be close again. So even if they missed their launch deadline by like a month,
they still had to wait.
They had to wait 2 years. Like that was it. Like there's no choice.
So the 2 years has made the mission better, the researchers who are involved say. And what they're going to be doing, which I think is so fantastic, is they have a seismometer, and they're going to try and detect Mars quakes. Not earthquakes, because earthquakes are here on Earth. They're going to try and detect Mars quakes to find out if there's anything still going on inside that old planet. and to try and figure out, because really right now, the only evidence that we have of the interior of a rocky planet is from Earth. Like, we have the surface of Mars covered. We've got all sorts of information about the surface of Mars, but we don't know anything really. We have guesses about what its core's like, how dense it is at certain levels. And so they're gonna try and find out what's going on inside of Mars. Another thing that they're going to be doing is they're going to be drilling drilling a heat sensor 5 meters into the surface. They're going to have a big old, I guess it's a Mars landing jackhammer that's going to be drilling a pole, drilling a tungsten spike into within 5 meters of the surface of Mars. I mean, I try and go out and jig in my garden and have issues getting, even a few inches in. So I'm going to be very impressed to see what happens there and what information they get back. It's not there yet. It's on its way. It's headed to Mars. So more could still happen. Hopefully it will land safely, and there will be more news once it gets there and we start getting some data. But nothing yet. And then another interesting study, space-wise, because it's good to navel gaze and keep an eye at what's going on here on the planet, but let's look up every once in a while. Look up at the stars and see what's out there. Researchers looking at exoplanets have discovered a planet. This was discovered a while ago, WASP 96b, but upon further inspection, they realized, and the researchers published in the journal Nature, May 7th, that WASP 96b doesn't have any clouds. Doesn't have any clouds in its atmosphere, unlike Jupiter and Uranus and Saturn, which are all very cloudy. We can't see into their interiors. These gas giants, the majority of them are covered in clouds that you can't see through, that block our ability to get signals in and out. And so in being able to penetrate the cloudy atmosphere, they have been able to look at the signals from this hot Saturn and have gotten a sodium fingerprint from it. And this is potentially going to give them a target for figuring out more about how gas giants form, because we could see inside of it if we look at it long enough. Pretty exciting stuff.
Neat.
Yeah. So the researchers say we've been looking at more than 20 exoplanet transit spectra being the light signature, and WASP 96b is the only exoplanet that appears to be entirely cloud-free and shows such a clear sodium signature, making the planet a benchmark for characterization. Until now, sodium was revealed either as a very narrow peak or found to be completely missing. And this is because the characteristic profile can only be produced deep in the atmosphere of the planet, which is very exciting. And this particular planet is located about 1,000 light years from Earth and is about 20% larger than Jupiter, but has about the same mass as Saturn, according to the information about it. It's hot. It's hot, hot, hot.
We've been reporting on exoplanet discoveries on TWIS for some time now. They're way beyond our solar system, spinning around these far distant suns.
And Justin,
dozens
where's
of them.
my condo?
Well,
Where is it?
We've seen dozens of them that are in the Goldilocks Earth-like habitable zones, but they're too far away to send a probe, at least in our species' lifetime, to confirm or deny the existence of life there. So I think it's time to just give up the idea of it. We will never know. That's that. Unless
Okay.
there is another way.
Okay.
Scientists at the University of California, Riverside's Alternative Earths Astrobiology Center are developing the first quantitative framework for dynamic biosignatures. This is a study of seasonal change in the atmosphere to see what clues they might hold for trace evidence of life. Based on seasonal changes in Earth's atmosphere, a planet that supports multitude of complex life forms, they think there may be a way. They're using a next generation telescope to measure the composition of gases surrounding planets that are light years away. Says here, tilted atmospheric seasonality, or titled atmospheric seasonality as an exoplanet biosignature, is a paper that's now in the Astrophysical Journal's letters. Lead author Stephanie Olson, graduate student at UC Riverside's Department of Earth Sciences. So as Earth orbits the sun, we are tilted on our axis, meaning different regions receive more rays at different times of the year. Winter versus summer. Winter, it's lower from the northern horizon, at least. In summer, it's higher up above. So when they go out and look back at the Earth, you can see signs of change in the weather and the length of days. The atmospheric composition is also changed in these regions. So northern hemisphere, we've got the preponderance of the world's vegetation, right? We got more plants growing in the northern hemisphere than the southern hemisphere. So what they can see in the atmosphere is in the summer, there are lower levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And there are higher levels of oxygen. So you could go out there and you could find a planet and you could say, there's a little bit of oxygen over here. There's a little, spike of a signature there. But there are possible natural causes for this. These could be false signals. So this is what's her name? Stephanie Olson being quoted here. Atmospheric seasonality is a promising biosignature because it is biologically modulated on Earth and is likely to occur on other inhabited worlds. Inferring life based on seasonality wouldn't require a detailed understanding of alien biochemistry because it arises as a biological response to seasonal changes in the environment rather than as a consequence of a specific biological activity that might be unique to the Earth. So different types of biological activities could do these triggers, not just our way we're doing it down here on Earth. So one of the things is not every planet tilts. Not all planets tilt, but exoplanets that have more elliptical orbits would be able to give us that same sort of, would have the effect of tilting like from their suns, which would give us a good thing. So they created a bunch of models where they fluctuated oxygen on a life-bearing planet with low oxygen content. They did models of the early Earth. Turns out there's other signs that they could be looking for. They discovered they could look at activity in ozone as well. So now that they've sort of built this thing, next step, of course, is to go and take a look and see if we can find any of these signs out there in the universe.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, there have been some really fascinating results from satellites looking at the Earth. Then there are videos that you can watch that really it looks like the Earth is breathing. I mean, you could describe it as this pulsing breath, like respiration or like a heartbeat, but it's something that it's pulsing, it's cyclic, and it is a signal of life, like that change over time. So this is cool. What are the signals we should look for? How do we find it? We see it on our own planet and we're looking at it now. And so it's like, okay, that's what it looks like here. This is what it should look like in these other situations also.
Yeah. And is it respirating? Right. Just like you say, is it respirating? Are these levels increasing and decreasing? I mean, if there's just an oxygen hit or just a methane hit, it doesn't guarantee life. But the fact that an atmosphere has a sort of inhale and exhale in its component is a pretty darn good sign that there's a lot of little inhaling and exhaling going on its surface.
Yeah, I think that's cool. That's neat. I love it. Yes, let's figure out more signals of how to look at that. Do you want to talk about your Swedish signals?
Yeah, researchers in Sweden have proposed making more things out of wood, and while that might seem like a totally natural thing you would expect the Swedes to suggest we do, they aren't talking just about furniture. They want to make cars, even airplanes, out of wood. Okay. Which still might seem like an entirely expected proposal for the Swedes to make. they've got a lot of trees there and wooden toys and furniture that's somewhat easy to assemble.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
according-
you just need an Allen wrench.
According to recent research published in the Journal of the American Chemical Society, they've actually developed a cellulose nanofiber that is stronger than spider silk, which is thought to be the strongest
Whoa, what?
fiber out there. And
Yeah.
also shows signs of being stronger than steel and glass, which are usually, the glass fibers that you would use to use as building materials. Yeah. And it's not, now that's not wood, but it's cellulose nanofibers is what gives wood its strength. So obviously they've done a little something extra.
Yeah, I mean, we already know that wood is strong. We build bridges and houses and these large trees bend and sway. It's strong yet slightly flexible. And wood is awesome. So
it's amazing that the spruce goose failed. Oh yeah, wood's also very heavy.
That's right.
And flammable.
And it also catches fire occasionally. So this is quotey voice of Daniel Soderbergh. The bio-based nanocellulose fibers fabricated here are 8 times stiffer and have strengths higher than natural dragline spider silk fibers, generally considered to be the strongest bio-based material. The specific strength is exceeding that of metals, alloys, ceramics, and e-glass fibers. So sounds like they did it. The study describes a new method that mimics nature's ability to arrange cellulose nanofibers into almost perfect macro scale arrangements. The progress results from insights into the way physics controls structuring of components at nanoscale during the fabrication. So with this understanding, they created this process, which is basically from the little bit I've got here. They're kind of doing it with DO water and properly pH'd water flowing over the interactions while they're taking place. And the nanofibers self-organize into a well-packed state where they're then joined together. So pretty intense. So yeah, you keep thinking we're there. This is how that means if you have a something that is stronger than spider silk, steel, you could be talking about much taller skyscrapers.
Yeah.
Than we. You can.
Not that we need that right now, but yes.
We do. Where are we going to put all the people? You can't have the people wandering around destroying nature. You got to stick them vertically all the way up. Just house them in big cities and don't let them go out into the nature anymore.
Yeah, no more nature.
There was a study that came out this week mixing wood and tunicates, which are pests in a lot of parts of the world, from ballast water and all these sorts of things. Tunicates are little marine invertebrates, and they can mix up the goo from these tunicates in with wood and make this very specific structure of these molecules that make really, really tough wood. So this is kind of a similar thing that came out this week that I saw.
Yeah, I love the self organization is a very important aspect of this. And as Dictel says in the chat room, space elevators. I mean, we've been talking about carbon nanotubes forever, but they haven't been able to organize those into long enough chains to really be useful, even though they're very strong and flexible. But maybe this technology is a step in that direction.
So actually, that was maybe even the bigger story within the story. They think that this could work for that.
Wow.
They think they can use the exact same technique that they're using here to do it with the what you call it, the
carbon nanotubes.
Carbon nanotubes.
Yeah.
With the same way. Yeah.
Well, who knows? That's maybe the bigger news. Maybe our space elevators, we can actually start talking about that again. Because I remember we used to talk about the space elevator. It was this big idea, carbon nanotubes. Oh my gosh, space elevator. We were so excited about it for a while. And then it was like, I think this is not a story anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But, the technology advances and then maybe it rears its head again. We'll see.
I think we could be, at this point, we should be shooting for a space escalator.
Space hot air balloon.
The escalator to the stars. Dun, dun, dun. You know what I think we should be shooting for right now?
What?
Blair's Animal Corner.
With Blair.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. If you want to hear about animals, she's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels.
What you got, Blair?
I have two stories about actually humans who have maybe invented ways of listening in on animals, monitoring animals, actually to help them. The first one, really interesting, seismology, the study of earthquakes or Mars quakes, I guess, depending, is now actually something that we could use to read into the actions and movements of the world's largest animal on land, elephants. So we've talked before about how elephants definitely use a very low level sound to communicate with each other over long distances. And now we might actually be able to use seismological equipment to read that and interpret it. So the new idea is looking at the ground vibrations from these long distance communications and also to track the movement and the type of movement that are happening with elephants, because also when 10,000 pounds stomp down each time, that creates a vibration on the ground that you can measure as well. So these researchers from the University of Oxford looked at the size of forces acting on the ground generated by elephants moving, but also by vocalization. They found that the forces generated through elephant calls were comparable to those generated by them walking quickly. So this means that elephant calls can travel as far as those movement signals can travel, which is pretty far. And in favorable conditions,
we can't actually even hear it. Like elephants look like they're sitting around being non-talky, quiet, reserved animals, but they talk a lot. It's just beyond our ability to hear it. They're just
absolutely. Well, I mean, and we've talked about this on the show a bunch, but most animals that you think are mute are not. Giraffes are a great example of that. Giraffes, people forever have thought giraffes had no voice, but actually they're speaking at this low level, it turns out, this whole time, right? But so the elephant calls actually appear to travel farther in favorable conditions through the ground than through the air. So this actually might be their main way of speaking with each other, is through these vibrations of the ground. So these researchers recorded vibrations generated by wild elephants in Kenya. This was not in a lab. This was out in the wild. And they watched them display different behaviors: walking, calling, and then kind of an emergency response as well. They use techniques used to investigate earth processes like earthquakes. And they were looking at how far elephant generated vibrations travel and how they're affected by human generated noise, terrain type, and other factors. So the terrain type and weather and foliage coverage and all these sorts of things are to create a baseline so they can actually figure out what they're measuring, of course. But then they also wanted to see how human generated noise and human kind of stimuli also affects that. So they found that they could classify particular elephant behaviors just through this seismological equipment. The computer models that they developed showed that they could detect and classify over kilometers the behaviors that these elephants were exhibiting, but they were influenced by factors including noise and terrain. They found that human-generated noise interferes with elephants' ability to communicate with each other. So this is a whole extra kind of noise pollution when you're thinking about vibrations. But they also found that they could extrapolate from the vibrations that they were recording what was happening in certain instances, in particular stress by poachers. So they could, from this monitoring equipment, find out in real time if elephants were in trouble and send responders there to try to catch potential poachers. Wow. So a reminder again, 96 elephants a day are killed for their ivory, 96 a day. So there's lots of things happening in the monitoring and protection of animals, but animals this big that move as quickly as they do, we don't have great ways of watching over these animals 24/7. So if we can have this response that's almost like, oh, there's an earthquake in Kenya over there, but instead you're catching this seismological data and you're going, there's a stampede that is reading on a scale that would indicate there's probably a poacher in such and such space. They can respond to that space, try to catch people and deter poachers. So
that's impressive. This could be very impactful. I mean, for the conservation of the species, and an interesting way to use technology to do it.
So speaking of, I didn't know something. 96 a day. Okay, there's a lot more elephants to begin with than I thought. That's 35,000 a year. So the good news is there were a lot more elephants than I thought there were. That's the silver lining. And poaching is much more horrific than I could have possibly imagined. Wow.
Yeah, and if we go back to our conversation with Dr. Bondar, the 22 months of gestation, it's not easy for these animals. They're not rabbits. No, a female is tied up being pregnant for almost 2 years before giving birth, and then is probably not ready to give birth again for a significant period of time following that because of the demands of the offspring, which are kind of like young kids, even though the baby elephants can get up and walk around and they're pretty, what's the word? They're precocious. They're precocious offspring. They still are. They're like toddlers.
Yes. And it takes them a lot of
attention.
Yeah, it takes them a long time to grow up old enough to have their own babies too, which is the other thing with population dynamics. So not to mention they benefit from the whole grandmother hypothesis that we've talked about on the show, where they keep older members of the herd around to help with the overall knowledge and health of the group. So every lost individual is a blow to the health and the viability of a herd. That all being said, we're working on it. There are people that are tightening ivory restrictions all over the world. California had a huge win a few years ago, tightening loopholes to trade ivory. We're moving in the right direction, but there needs to be huge latitudinal efforts to fix this problem. So tightening restrictions, catching poachers, better monitoring, all these things are part of the solution. It's not one kind of silver bullet to fix this. So
I think the one option would be to house all humans in 1,000-story skyscrapers with no windows, so that after a few generations, they forget that there's even a nature out there to destroy.
Right. Spaceship
if they don't
Earth.
know the elephants exist, then
That's right. No
Can't hurt
idea.
'em.
What are these things?
The last bit about this is that the next step for this research is to deploy larger long-term networks of seismic sensors along with aerial, visual, and acoustic instruments so that they can examine elephant reactions when researchers echo their own signals back to them. Because that's the other thing. If you can't get people out to where they know there's a poacher, but they can play back a signal that tells them to go away from where they are, then you can still help move these animals away from danger in real time right away.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like the tsunami warning system.
Yes. Learning to speak elephant.
The early warning system. That's right. But
absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Next one, another really cool new piece of technology to help monitor animals is a special smart skin for marine animals. The problem with current sensors in the marine environment is that they're usually very bulky. They could affect their hydrodynamics. They can change how much they weigh and affect ballast kind of controls in an animal. There's all sorts of problems with these sensors, not to mention that they're not often durable. There's not a lot of them that can be used multiple times because salt water is so terrible for most equipment. But so there's this new thing called marine skin that has come out of Saudi Arabia and Virginia, actually. And they put this marine skin, they tried it out with crabs first, but now they're kind of scaling up slowly. And so this is based on stretchable silicone elastomers that can withstand twisting, shearing, stretching, even when they're at the high pressures of deep sea. So through these, they can already track animals' movement and diving behavior, and they can also monitor certain things about the marine environment in real time. It's non-invasive, it's light, it has a longer operational lifetime, and it starts working quicker and recording quicker than other things that they've had in the past. It's just in the prototype stage, but it has been used to look at location, temperature, salinity, depth, all these things. And for right now, they can only retrieve the data via wireless connection once it's removed. But in future, they're hoping to actually be able to put signals through the water and collect data in real time.
Nice.
So next on the docket is to move on to dolphins and whale sharks with the marine skin. And then beyond that, they want to develop marine skin that will last for up to a year on animals of all different genera.
Which would be awesome, because then you can get multiple seasons, and especially for animals that migrate or that move through different portions of the ecosystem during different times of the season, following food or whatever factors, that would allow that kind of monitoring to take place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
And I think about like some of those sea turtle cam videos that you can see where you get to watch what a sea turtle does. But I couldn't help but think that whole time, every time I watch one of those, how it's affecting their drag, how it's affecting them moving through the water, but also if it's scaring away some of their food. It looks weird. So it's when you're trying to record a natural behavior, if you're putting some weirdo bulky thing on an animal's back, it has the potential to throw in extra variables in there. So
absolutely. I mean, it'll change how other animals interact with that animal. It'll change all sorts of things. Yeah.
So forget that it's an animal for a second. And a human walks up to you with a big camera on their shoulder and is filming you while they're talking to you.
You're on
differently.
You're on Twitch TV? Are we live right now? You're a live caster? What?
So I can picture
Hey,
no.
Hey, Natalie Portman, you getting a bagel?
I can just try to picture the other animals like, oh, hang on, let me.
Yeah. There are those that are camera shy, those that need to fix their appearance. That's right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So marine skin, hopefully coming to an ocean near you.
Great.
My very last story. Great horned owls. Great horned owls are birds of prey. Birds of prey are known overall to be very monogamous, but owls especially monogamous. Also, though females are usually in charge, they compete for space and then the males come to them. They are usually territorial. Females do not like to share space with other birds of prey. Well, outside an office window and the Desert Research Institute in Nevada, an odd sight developed, and an ornithologist found out about it, checked it out. It was a trio of great horned owls in what appeared to be a polygamous relationship. So there was a single male. He was sighted bringing food to two separate males with nests very close to one another. Unrecorded closeness. Okay. And he was feeding both of them. They could see it. They were witnessing this. He wasn't double timing them.
You said to two males.
Two females.
This is actually more of a progressive great horned owl story than I thought.
No, I misspoke. There's 2 females on nests, and then there's a single male bringing food to both females. So these very territorial females laid nests, set up nests next to each other. Already weird. Let the same male feed both of them. Equally weird. They both laid eggs. It gets weirder. And this is where it gets out of control weird, is that only one female had fertile eggs in the end. We don't know why. So mating was not directly observed. So we don't know for sure that he mated with both of them. But based on the fact that he brought both of them food while they were sitting on eggs, there wouldn't be a lot of reason for him to do it otherwise. So assuming that that's what happened, only one of the females actually ended up with fertile eggs. And then the hen that was on the infertile eggs became a surrogate second mother to the owlets that hatched on the other nest. So she started bringing food and sitting on the other owlets.
Aw, cooperative rearing of the chicks. So this is
crazy.
This has never been seen before in owl
No.
in the species of great horned owls.
No, absolutely not.
I want Carin here. I want Dr. Bondar to talk about this right now.
Yes. Oh man, I wish we had had more time. But so one of the theories now is that these females might be related.
That's what I was my first thought. Is
So
this a
they
sister,
could be
a widow, something of that nature?
Yeah, so it's possible they're siblings, but what they think might be more likely is that it's a mother-daughter pair,
Mother-daughter,
which if you
yeah.
ask me would make more sense, because if the older owl or the younger owl had the infertile eggs, that would make sense. If it's a first-time mom, the eggs might not have been fertile. If it's the older mom, she could be coming out of kind of her
Fertility,
fertile
yeah.
times. So that could make sense. But they haven't done any testing on these animals because they just found them in the wild outside of a window and started going, what are you guys doing?
Well,
So-
this is the same the Nevada Desert. She's the same one that did was involved in the DNA test from the spit out quids from last week's story. So they just need to call up their DNA person and send them out to pick up a couple of feathers, and there you go.
Absolutely.
We can solve this mystery. But if it is a polygamous thing, polygamy is just like extra monogamy. I mean, that's all it really is.
Right. But the thing is, birds of prey, people have been watching birds of prey for a very long time because birders are that's one of the oldest kind of hobbies in science, is just looking at birds. And so we know a lot about birds of prey and what their preferences are. And to this point, female birds of prey do not like sharing their men or their space. That is what we know to this point. So this is super unusual as far as we know.
Yeah, and this kind of cooperative rearing and this kind of a mating situation, it usually it will occur in more social species. So like the Florida scrub jay, there are some woodpecker species, I think, in California. There are multiple species of birds where this kind of situation will arise, but there is usually it's more of a commonality and it's usually because they're all related in some way, at least, they're a family group in some way. But you're right. I mean, birds of prey, most often they do their special hunt, show each other their hunting prowess. And they're like, I'm going to dangle a twig at you. And then, I like you. And then they stick with one mate for the season, typically.
For at least the season. And it's also got to be dangerous. Like if you get into an argument with another bird and you're both the crow, you might peck at each other a little bit. But if you're both birds of prey, like they have to hang out to mate. Like, so there's an exception sort of made to that. You got to trust at least one other bird. But then, the other one, it becomes dangerous.
If you watch a male bird of prey kind of make his offering to a female, it's kind of, I always think about like with spiders, we talk about it too, where they just kind of go like, here's this bunny. I hope it pleases you. Bye. Like, can I come? Okay, I'll let you finish eating that, but can I, cool. Let's like, they're very guarded, the males, because the females will take a swipe at them if
Because-
they're not pleased.
Danger.
It's
Because-
dangerous.
It's dangerous. It is. You know what else is dangerous
What?
for the planet? Going on vacation.
Uh-oh.
We knew it was true, but we don't want to
Oh, yeah.
believe it when we jet off on those wonderful vacations to sunny, warm beaches in other areas of the world for multiple reasons. New analysis says that tourism is really bad for the environment. For multiple reasons. But, it's not all bad because according to the Cal Academy of Sciences, there are some ways that you can kind of make good on your climate debt, your environment debt. And one of those things is you can offset with carbon credits. You can make particular purchases with groups that plant trees to offset the carbon that you use on trips like this. You can also buy local. Make sure you go to local restaurants that use locally sourced food, that create their products locally, so that you are not getting into the merchandise that's been shipped from all over the place. And I mean, really, why do you go someplace if you're going to buy something from someplace else? That doesn't make sense. There are wonderful ways you can use public transportation once you're at the location, so that you're not relying on independent cars and trucks to get you around. Many different ways that you can think about actually not making your impact as bad. But tourism, your vacation is bad for the planet. So everybody, where are you going after you win the Super Bowl? I hope it's not to Disneyland. No.
Unless you're within driving distance.
Unless you're within a bus distance or a train distance. Why is living on the earth so hard? I need a vacation.
All in moderation.
I know. I need a vacation in a warm, sunny place with a beach sometime in the future. I really do.
Well, you better swim then, Kiki.
That's right. I got to get that ocean swimming under my belt. Yeah. Other food for thought as we come into the end of the show. New study suggests that various salmon species that have been categorized for conservation purposes as one species, just they are all one. Well, really, the spring run Chinook salmon are very different from the fall run Chinook salmon, but it all comes down the timing, which they thought was the result of multiple genes being involved. One gene impacts all of the behaviors related to being a spring traveler versus a fall traveler. And so now the question is, should we be defining species for conservation purposes based on single gene differences? How important, what difference a gene makes? So this is just an interesting conservation question that, I will leave you with to ponder on your own as we run to the end here. And finally, turns out, at least in mice, it's always in mice, 24 hours of fasting is enough to induce regeneration of intestinal stem cells. Now, you might think, why is 24, what a big deal is this? Well, as you get older, intestinal stem cells start deteriorating, dying off, not reproducing as much. Your intestine doesn't work as well. The lining doesn't reproduce and replenish itself as readily as it once did. This impacts the microbiota that we always talk about. And we have talked on numerous occasions about the gut-brain axis, how things that go on in the intestines can impact what happens in the brain. So if you fast for 24 hours, or at least a mouse, they found that old mice that they fasted for 24 hours had similar levels of stem cell regeneration in their intestines as young mice who had not fasted. So 24 hours of fasting can trigger some pretty big benefits, at least in the intestines of mice. And so people have been talking about the benefits of fasting for a while for weight loss, but maybe weight loss is not necessarily the big thing. Maybe it has to do with overall health. in the end.
So my first question there would be to find out, maybe Blair, how often do mice eat? How many?
Constantly.
Okay. So in human 24 hours, how long would we actually have to fast to get the same benefit?
That's a great question.
Probably less than.
For 10 days.
No.
I think it would be longer. If they eat constantly and we're eating like 3 times a day, they went 24 hours. They missed maybe 40 meals.
I see what you're saying.
Right?
Yeah, but probably it has to do with metabolism for sure. Mouse metabolism is faster than human metabolism.
So maybe we only need to fast for 2 hours.
So maybe we do. Maybe we do. But the silver lining for everyone who's like, I don't want to fast for 24 hours. These researchers have pinpointed an enzyme for which there are drugs that, or at least molecules that can stimulate it and lead to the same regenerative changes in stem cells.
Wow.
So maybe someday, there might not be a drug to replace exercise, a pill to replace exercise, but maybe there'll be a pill to replace fasting. We can only hope. We can only hope. Yeah. In the meantime, I'm just going to continue my fast that occurs between the end of dinner and breakfast the next morning, and then between breakfast and lunch. Really the fasting that just occurs between any time that I eat. Don't eat. Yeah. But I think we've done it. Have we made it to the end of another episode?
We
Is that it? Was that a whole show?
Did we make it to the end of a whole show? We did it.
Made it.
We made it. We made it. We made it. And now is my time to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for joining us for the show tonight. And thank you to everyone who has been a part of making this show possible. Thank you to Fada for helping out in doing the social media and also in helping with the YouTube show notes. Thank you to Identity 4 for recording the show every week. And also thank you to Brandon for helping us to simulcast to Facebook, and everyone else out there who supports us through their gracious and generous donations. Thank you for all of your help keeping this show going. Specifically, I would like to thank our Patreon sponsors. Thank you to Paul Disney, G. Burton Lattimore, Richard Onimus, Ken Hayes, Harrison Prather, Charlene Henry, Joshua Fury, Andy Groh, Steve DeBell, Alex Wilson, Tony Steele, Ed Dyer, Craig Landon, John Ratnaswamy, Mark Mazzaros, Jack, Gary, Matthew Litwin, Jason Roberts, Bill Kay, Bob Calder, Time Jumper 319, Kyle Washington, Eric Knapp, Richard, Brian Condren, Ashish Pants, Jacqueline Boyster, Ulysses Adkins, Sean Bryant, Sarah Chavez, Richard Porter, Artyom, Rick Ramus, Paul, John McKee, Jason Olds, Brian Carrington, Christopher Dreyer, Lisa Slazewski, Jim Drapeau, Greg Riley, Sean Lamb, Ben Rothig, Steve Lesseman, Kurt Larson, Robert Aston, Rudy Garcia, Marjorie, Gary S., Robert, Greg Briggs, Brendan Minish, Christopher Rappin, Flying Out, Aaron Luthen, Matt Sutter, Mark Hessenflow, Kevin Parachan, Byron Lee, E.O., Mark, Tyrone Fong, and Keith Corsell. Thank you for all of your help on Patreon, all your support on Patreon. And for everyone out there who is interested in finding out more about Patreon, you can find information at patreon.com/thisweekinscience or just at twis.org. And you can also help us out by telling your friends about TWIS. We're here every week. That's right. On next week's show, we'll be back yet again, broadcasting live at 8 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday evening. You can find us live at twis.org/live. We also have a chat room there. But if you don't make it, don't worry. The show is at YouTube. It is also on our Facebook channel. And it's just at twis.org. We will publish it all the places.
Thank you for enjoying the show. TWIS is also available as a podcast. Just Google This Week in Science in your iTunes directory. Or if you have a mobile type device, you can look for TWIS, the number 4 droid app in the Android marketplace, or simply This Week in Science in anything Apple marketplacey.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes will be available on our website. That's at www.twis.org. That's TWIS.org, where you can also make comments and start conversations with the hosts or other listeners.
Or you can contact us directly. Email Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twistminion@gmail.com, or Blair at blairbaz@twist.org. Just be sure to put twist, TWIS, somewhere in the subject line so your email doesn't get spam filtered into oblivion. You can also hit us up on the Twitter, where we are at Twist Science, at Dr. Kiki, at Jacksonfly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes to you in the night, please let us know.
We'll be back here next week, and we hope you'll join us again for more great science news.
And if you've learned anything from the show, remember,
It's all in your head.
This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. This week in science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. This week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth, and I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer, and it shouldn't be news, that what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just yet understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy. We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. And This Week in Science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say. And if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. Science. I've got a laundry list of items I want to address, from stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought, and I'll try to answer any question you've got. So how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This Week in Science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say, and if you learned anything from the words that we've said, then please just remember it's all in your head. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. Science. This Week in 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 Science.
And that ends another episode of This Week in Science. We have scienced all over the place this week.
Ooh. Somebody get a mop.
That's right. There's science everywhere. Someone was sloppy and spilled the science. Hey, everybody in the chat room. Thanks for chatting. Everyone over at YouTube, thanks for all your chats. Everyone at Facebook, if you're still over there, thank you for your chats. So many chats.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you stop that, Stella. You and the glasses of water. Goodness. any glass of water. I put it on the floor so I don't spill it on the table that has all the technology. And then the cat's like, I'm going to get in there. And she's like, I'm going to knock it all over. Glasses of water. Got my paw. I'm going to push it over.
Study about why cats knock things over.
Because they're little effers.
It's to get human attention. Is actually the reason.
I think my cat drank my water.
Yep. Good. Enjoy your oocytes. Delicious. Oocyte infused. For your drinking pleasure.
Ew. I mean, you mean ew.
Yeah.
Ew sight. Hey, Blair, your art looks awesome.
Thanks. I haven't done any color yet, but color's coming this year.
Oh, cool.
I have plans. I have all sorts of plans for the color, but
awesome.
I haven't thoroughly tested it yet. So I've not been able to apply the color to my actual drawings yet.
Well, you got to, test it on something that's not the final drawings before you do that.
I can't be ruining my Dimetrodon.
Nope. Don't be doing that. Vitamin toxoplasma. Yeah. It's good. It's
Justin,
good.
why were you so dark earlier?
Nothing changed at my end, but I turned off the camera because I had to cough and sneeze.
I know it was
when
like
I turned it back on, the light balance of the camera changed, and
that's
so
what's happening to me too.
Yeah, it was weird.
I had to move my lights from their normal spot because this is
I
was
kind
a
of
ghost
wiggled
today.
the light around during it, and it didn't. You wait, what?
I'm a ghost. See, I'm so it's so bright.
Yeah. So I even did this, and it just put a little light on me when it had done the self-modulating. And I tried to turn this thing off. I had it off once, and I turned off the autofocus once too, because that was like, actually, I think it's off again.
These self-modulating cameras. They get the permission to self-modulate, but they're not smart enough to do it the way that we want them to.
And actually, if you just set a point of focus, you're fine. You don't need it to constantly be adjusting at this rate.
Yeah. Oh, Bleak. So talking about fasting, I had the most amazing chicken sandwich yesterday. Oh my God. It was hot and spicy. It was a fried chicken sandwich that was amazing. Tasty and Sons in Portland. Their chicken sandwich.
Well, the name like that.
It's tasty.
Better be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll be very disappointed.
Oh my goodness, it was delicious. It's so good. I'm such a weirdo. I had like this hot chicken sandwich and kimchi. I'm like, I want more spicy things. Give me the cabbage. Yeah.
Actually, one of my favorite moments in any movie is in the movie Elf, where upon visiting New York for the first time, he sees somebody has a sign that says "World's Best Coffee," and he barges and he's go, "Congratulations, you did it! I'm so
you have the world's best coffee." People are like, what? I love that movie for so many reasons.
It's so good.
The Crack Shack in San Diego, huh? I'm gonna have to look that up. The Crack Shack. I don't know. For those of you not doing anything this weekend, Eurovision. What
you talking about, Kiki?
I'm talking about Eurovision.
What?
Yeah, what is that?
All right, I have a Google here. I'm not even gonna wait for you to tell me.
You gotta look up Eurovision. So I'm excited because there's now a sci-fi novel based on the idea of Eurovision. So Eurovision. There's a great primer on Boing Boing, written by the author of this sci-fi novel. And I'm blanking on her name right now. Kathy. La, 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 la. There it goes. It's called Space Opera, is the name of the book. If any of you need a fun kind of Douglas Adams romp through the universe with it involves music and sci-fi, it's fantastic. Yes, and so the Eurovision, it was started in 1956, at the end of World War II, as a way to bring Europe back together through song.
Huh.
And so every country nominates and submits a performance. It's a song by a performer or a group, and it runs the gamut from Euro glam, Euro trash. This year there's a Hungarian Euro metal band.
Okay.
Oh my God, it's brilliant. And it's over the top and wonderful. And last year it was one. It really does this amazing job of kind of representing the political climate in Europe at the time. So 2 years ago, this woman from the Ukraine won with this very emotional song, and it was amazing. And then last year, it's like everyone's like, "Oh my God, I'm so tired of all this stuff that's going on." It's this very simple song sung by a Portuguese man wearing an oversized black jacket with a man bun. So it's different every year. Bleak, it is not. Yes, it's so bad. It's good. It's it is one of the it's my favorite thing aside from science in general. I think as an entertain for me, I look forward to this every year. I look forward to it. I for months ahead of time, I keep track of the different songs that are going to be entered into the competition. And I am so excited. Yes. I already watched the semifinals. Semifinal 1 was yesterday. Semifinal 2 is tomorrow. So you know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. Then Eurovision.
So,
Saturday.
oddly, the only thing I know about Eurovision is that the British representative to the EU on the way out threw out a jab about Eurovision that they never select the UK.
Oh yeah, no, the UK
But I guess they haven't won for
UK
20-something years.
Yeah, they have won, but they haven't won for a very long time.
Really long time.
Yeah, they're probably not gonna. Their entrant is nice this year. It's good. She looks kind of Annie Lennoxy, but I don't think her song is gonna win. There's stiff competition this year, have to say. I have to say. Yeah. It is my bread and butter this week. I love it. I love it. It is like that amazing chicken sandwich. This week is pretty good in terms of chicken sandwiches and music.
You know what else is cool this week? My bowling team is in first place right now, and there's only 2 more weeks left in the league. So
Awesome.
Oh.
Are we gonna see another trophy behind you?
Right.
It looks like there's room for maybe a couple more, but not much. You're gonna have to sort of get another layer or level to that.
Yeah, I could knock off my animal logs.
Oh, those aren't trophies?
No.
I thought those were trophies for log cutting.
Just these
Lumberjack.
6, that's all.
That's right. Those are Blair's lumberjack
This is, I got this one for doing a log roll for longer than any of the other contestants, and
it's a guanaco.
oh my god!
Oh, that's right.
And then on the back is its butt.
There we go. I
So you can
think
actually flip them for heads or tails.
Yeah, you could use them to flip them. I think those could also be hipster lumberjack awards. Who wore the plaid shirt the best? They didn't actually have to do any log cutting or anything. Just who wore the best plaid shirt? Yes,
so
did tell all those are all for bowling, right? Those are your bowling trophies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Admittedly, one of them is not mine. But 5 of them are mine.
Only one. Okay.
Blake is saying we even let Australia enter Eurovision a couple years ago. Yeah.
Yes.
So I kind of get
ago.
it now. Eurovision is like a music awards for the rest of the world.
For the rest of the world, yeah. I hope they never let the U.S. in.
No, we would just dominate it.
It would be ruined. So I hope they don't let the U.S. in, even though people in the U.S. are getting more interested in it. I hope they just keep the U.S. out. And I mean, even though they let Australia in, which is not part of Europe, but it was part of the war. And so, but yeah, I hope they keep the US out. Yeah. But this book, Space Opera, it is fun, and it's the language is popping all over the place, and descriptions of things are all over. It's very Douglas Adamsy in terms of the dynamics of the writing, and the idea behind it is that the universe, there are sentient beings, sentient races in the universe, and they had this big war at some point. And in order to not have war again, they decided, all right, so when we find a new sentient species, we want to make sure that they're all cool like us, and they're into the same stuff that we're into. And so we're going to have a music competition. And so it's an intergalactic, the space opera, it's an intergalactic music competition where new species have to compete. They are forced to compete and enter a song and whatever they're going to do, their performance. And if they lose, the entire race gets decimated. It's just like, you lost, you don't get to join the club of cool sentients, you're out. And the planet the resources are responsibly mined. All other species on the planet are allowed to survive except for the newly sentient species. And so it's this whole thing. The aliens have come to Earth and they've chosen the champion who's going to represent the Earth, and it's all a mess, and it's fantastic.
There's a Rick and Morty episode kind of like about that, which is what Identity 4 is referencing in the chat room right now.
Which one?
There's a Rick and Morty
I was going to say
Rick and Morty. That's right. Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm like, did I see this somewhere? Like, I feel like.
Show me what you got.
Disqualified. That's funny. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's fun. It's fun. Entertainment. It's a thing to do. Last week, the science communication workshop I went to was amazing. I met a lot of people I had not met before. And I'm excited to see where it goes as a result. So exciting. It's a really, they're going to be doing the group, the Kavli Institute, who funded this workshop, and 3 other workshops on different aspects of science communication, are going to be doing an overview plenary at some point, maybe in the fall. So we'll get to hear what overall they discovered from these conversations and where they're going to go next, what's going to happen next. But it was good. It was a very useful couple of days, and I am really glad that I got to go. And it was very exciting to be around a bunch of other facilitators of science communication and talking very specifically about the subject at a very high level. It was like, oh, I get to be an intellectual talking about an intellectual subject. This is amazing. I'm smart with other smart people. Hey, we all want to do good in the world. Hey, that's awesome. Yeah.
Isn't that fun when that happens?
Yes, it's very fun. Yeah. It was great. So we will see. I will keep you all up to date on what I learn as I can as to what we can figure out. Yeah. What else is going on? What else? Anybody else have more science? Who's gonna try fasting? Who's doing that?
Well, I used to do it every year on Yom Kippur.
That's right.
But the problem is when you get older, and I understand there's a lot of pavement ahead of me, but just looking back, right? It was like every year I could do is no big deal. Like normally you're supposed to, you're not supposed to drink water. You're not supposed to eat. You're not supposed to do anything. And you're just supposed to kind of chill all day because it's a national holiday in Israel. And like, it's supposed to be one of the highest of holy days. So you're not supposed to go to work. But because I lived in America and, you know, went to school and went to work and all that kind of stuff, I would usually fast. I would allow myself to drink water because I was like, I can't fast and not drink water and be a human. So I
Yeah.
allowed myself to drink water, but I wouldn't eat. And I would go to school or I would go to work or sometimes both. And I was fine. It was fine. It was no big deal. It was just like I had dinner, didn't eat again until sundown the next day. You know, I was a little bit, you know, grumbly in the tumbly, but otherwise I was fine. Past couple years, nah, could not do it. Made it to like after lunch, but made it to like the afternoon, and I was starting to feel lightheaded or got a headache or whatever, is because I was trying to do the normal things that I do when I normally, you know, fuel my body, and I did not. And it was a problem. So if I was going to do this fasting thing, I would have to do it. I would do it on a weekend day, and I would nap and like watch TV and read all day. I would try to not be very active if I was going to fast for 24 hours.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if it would be better. I mean, you were mentioning being at school all day or at work, you know, and there's part of it is like being distracted. You know, very often there's the, oh, I forgot to eat. You know, when you're doing something that's all consuming and that's really fun, it's like, oh, yeah, you know, I'm busy. I forgot to eat. And you can kind of get away with it. But I find when I'm at home and just kind of I'm on the couch or I'm not doing anything, I'm like, I think I'm hungry now. You know, you're paying more attention to yourself.
You got to
And
just
so
not
those
leave bed.
signals
You
come
got to
up.
just nap the day away, I think, is the way to get through it.
I'm not eating. I'm just gonna sleep instead.
Yeah. Honestly, that's how people do it a lot of the time in Israel when they fast for Yom Kippur. Is, you know, you go to synagogue in the morning and then you go home and you take a 3-hour nap, and then you go back to synagogue and then you go home and you take another 3-hour nap, and then you go back to synagogue and then you go home and you eat dinner, and that's it. So that's how you get through it.
You just do
Nap
it. Go to
away.
church. Nap.
Yeah.
Church.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it was done there.
Yeah.
Nap it away.
Nap it away.
Of course, Justin fasts every day.
That's
So
right.
you know, that's like I get like pretty much all the way there, pretty close, because I will go through long periods of time where I mean I don't normally eat breakfast anyway. If I'm busy or involved at work, like you said, I'm into it. I will work right through lunch, and I'll get home and I'll have a nice big meal, which I don't think would count as really fasting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can do the 1 meal a day thing, which I think technically means I might be, you know, able to fast for 23 hours a day.
Exactly. Yeah. All you got to do is have an early dinner one night and a late dinner the next night, and you're there.
Right. But I kind of wonder, like, maybe I have like a super healthy stem cell-y intestinal tract. And I don't have, like, you know, usually have any kind of guttural grunto issues of any kind. So yeah.
But it also does kind of make sense how, like, when you cut a certain food out of your diet, you crave it for a while and then you stop craving it. Is it because there's this turnover happening in your gut that, you know, maybe you're not fasting, but maybe you're removing all salt out of your diet, and so the ecosystem changes down there, so you stop craving it because there's this turnover.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting idea, that it's the time it takes for the cellular turnover to change. Huh. Cellular turnover, bacterial turnover.
The bacterial turnover, yeah, big time, because different fuel in, different population in there that knows what to do with it.
Yeah.
All right, kids, I gotta roll.
All right. I'm sleepy today. I got some sleepiness going on. Blink, blink, blink.
Whew.
You got other stuff going on, Justin?
Yes, I've got to go. Before I go though, my daughter and I, well, really mostly my daughter, went to Mars and came back this week. We went to the Challenger Learning Center. They've got one in the area. There was initially 11 of them in honor of the people who were on the Challenger. Now I guess there's like 40 or more of them nationwide. But
that's cool.
It's a little bit like a space museum. They had one of the Titan rockets, or not the rocket, but the engine from a Titan rocket was there. They used to have a space capsule, but I didn't see it this time. I wonder if it's gone. But there was also like life-size dinosaurs that they had built in this sort of, park area. But the real focus of the thing is the kids go in and they get split up into two big groups. One goes on a Martian lander that's coming in for landing, and the other goes in to a mission control on Mars and helps guide in the vessel that's incoming. And they've got to relay messages, and they've got they're checking trajectories, and they're doing experiments that they're relaying back and forth, and then they've got somebody else who's watching the vitals on the other ship. They run into a couple emergencies, have to figure out a way to get out of it, and then they switch. The crew that lands comes in, and they get to be mission control, and the other crew goes out, and they have to take off again. It was so much fun, and the kids were into it. And my favorite part of it was the instructors. They're like, okay, so your children or students or the kids you're in charge of are going to look at you, and they're going to ask you questions. What do I do? And they'll do puppy eyes. What do I do? And your answer to every question must be, I don't know. I guess you'll have to figure it out. And they made us practice a couple times. Like, I don't know. I guess you'll have to figure it out. But the kids were so into it. There was all these instructions going in. There was like a half hour of instructions. I'm like, oh, this could just end badly. Kids got right into it. They all had their jobs. They had these little flip sheets of what to do. And oh, it was so much fun. It was so much fun.
That sounds so cool.
And my daughter was the communications officer. So she's relaying messages back and forth. Oh, it was fantastic.
She was Uhura, huh?
She was absolutely. She was hurrying it the whole time. It was fantastic.
What did she say after? Like, how did she enjoy it?
Oh yeah, no, she just had an absolute blast doing it. And then we started having fun because she had to keep saying over, like, spacecraft, this is mission control. Are you ready to receive the message? Over. Like,
she's learning the proper communications protocol. It's good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But no, we had a lot of fun. I gotta go.
Okay, get out of here.
I gotta go. One of the moon landers got stuck. I gotta go push it out again.
All right, go get it out. Go solve the emergency. That's good. We'll see you next week.
Are you guys leaving too, or are you gonna hang out?
We're gonna go too. I think I'm
okay.
tired.
Well, in that case, say goodnight, Blair.
Good night, Blair. Say good night, Justin.
Good night, Justin.
Good night, Kiki.
Good night, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for joining us yet again. We love that you come here, and we love being here. We'll see you next week. Where's the buttons? There's the button. I found the button. Good night.